Welcome back to News in Focus. There are growing calls for Gayton Mckenzie to be removed as the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture amid accusations of racism. Social media posts from over a decade ago have resurfaced in which Mckenzie allegedly used derogatory language towards black people. Joining me now, I'd like to welcome from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, Neeshan Balton. Neeshan, thank you so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV.
Good afternoon, Faraz, and greetings to your listeners.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, Neeshan, what a week it has been. I mean, it kind of begs the question, doesn't it, of where South Africa is in terms of really dealing with racism. I want you to get your take on it, because I know the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation has been really fighting hard to go ahead and find a way to deal with a systematic use of racism, which still exists 31 years into democracy.
No, thank you very much. And we mustn't get completely distracted by individual actions of racism and ignore, I think, the fundamental changes that have happened and that still should happen in the country on issues of race. Just to give you a short example, this year is the 70th anniversary of the Group Areas Act. But today, almost every part of South Africa is desegregated. You will not find, maybe aside from Oranje, a place that is exclusively for one race or particularly for white people only. Every former white area today has, as a minimum, probably about 30% black people as a minimum. On the basis not of the last census, but the previous one. So, I think racial change and racial justice change might not be visible to everybody every day, but we also get distracted by a country when there's an issue that makes the headlines. So I think that the individual actions are important, the actions that the people need to be held accountable for are important, but we should never take that as an overall reflection of race relations in the entire country.
Neeshan, you mentioned, of course, with another broadcaster, Gayton Mckenzie, of course, he represents the Patriotic Alliance, and its party's manifesto, or its constitution, as you'd like to call it, going ahead and calling for foreign nationals to be either put out of South Africa, or of course, maybe being treated differently. This comes at a time, of course, where we see stories and images coming where foreign nationals are not being allowed to be treated at various hospitals or clinics across the country. Is that a reflection of what the alleged use of the K word was? When we see Gayton Mckenzie, when we see what his party is that sort of like a correlation between himself and how his party is representing, especially when it comes towards foreign nationals?
I think there might well be. And the reason for saying that is, part of the discussions is how far back do you have to go to hold people accountable for statements that they have made, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years ago. And whether, for us, the key issue is whether people today have moved beyond statements that they might have made. And when we look at Minister Mckenzie and his party, and it's, there's one thing about calling for South Africa to be tough on people who are here illegally. But when you use language that almost says that those people are almost subhuman in some way or the other, and when that gets taken up by others who will then, not necessarily from his party, but beyond, who start taking up this call to then deny people of basic health services, then you realize the implications of the usage of that word and the actions that will flow from it. So we certainly think there is a correlation, and that is a correlation that perhaps if the Human Rights Commission takes this up to the Equality Court, that can be tested.
Neeshan, South Africa at this very moment, and of course the national convention which is going to be happening this weekend, a lot of the discussion is going to be unity, Ubuntu. And I feel as much as it's a word, it's a beautiful word to use, we still have parts of society where we've not moved on pre-1994. There still seems to be a sense of division amongst many of us. How does something like a national convention go ahead and address something like this, where we can have podcasters going ahead and making derogatory comments on the colored community of South Africa? And then, of course, you have a minister who is part of the cabinet who has old tweets resurfacing with the usage of the K word. Where is South Africa now in terms of moving forward in a unified country where it moves beyond just sports matches, real life situations where this unity can be achieved?
So I would advise yourself and others to read up on the report that gets produced by the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. It's called a Reconciliation Barometer that's been released every year for the last 18 to 20 years. And then there's another organization that I just can't remember their name now, but who have also put out a very detailed report on the state of reconciliation in our country. And I think what both of those reports do is point to the progress that has been made, point to the unfinished business, and possibly the issues that still require further attention. So there are huge parts of the country where there are day-to-day expressions of Ubuntu. You just take any part of South Africa today where there are water outages. You will find that people who have boreholes, by and large, have had the generosity of spirit to make water available to everybody. So I think at a community level, you find expressions of Ubuntu. Where we don't find Ubuntu is within the leading institutions of government who are supposed to be the lead examples on this. Whether it's the Department of Health, the Department of Social Services, and so forth, there is where you find the worst examples of Ubuntu in terms of the treatment meted out to very vulnerable South Africans. Just go to any pay point on pension payout days and see how the long queues and the sun that people have to stand in to access their basic pensions. And in most cases, they would get there and find that their pensions are not in their accounts, or that they would have to come back the next day. So I think in many ways, just a generalized argument or statement that the country is lacking in Ubuntu is wrong. I think we have to point to the areas where it is lacking and who is at fault in that regard.
Neeshan, one final question. Various political parties are calling for Mckenzie to step down as the sports minister. Some of them are as far as going and asking President Cyril Ramaphosa to do that very same favor and ask Minister Mckenzie to step down from his position. Of course, there is going to be an investigation by the South African Human Rights Commission. But from an Ahmed Kathrada Foundation perspective, what is the way forward with regards to Minister Mckenzie, given, of course, these alleged use of derogatory language?
You must take into account the role of this minister. He is the champion of social cohesion. He is the champion of all of our heritage institutions, and whose primary job is to build unity in this country. With these allegations hanging over his head, I think it will be very hard for him to convince any audience about the sincerity of his mandate. And perhaps it would be best for the president to do, as he has done with the Minister of Police, is to place him on special leave whilst this investigation goes on, and let the investigation do its work in a way that is unhindered, but that is incredibly thorough as well.
Neeshan, Balton, absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. It's Neeshan Balton, Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. Up next, if you are in Johannesburg and this really makes me excited. It's a nice feel-good story to wrap up our show today. The Johannesburg City Library has reopened after 5 years. There's nothing better than going into a library, picking out your favorite book, and enjoying the surroundings of it. We're going to be speaking to Nobunto Mpendulo, who's the Director of Libraries at the City of Johannesburg, with regards to the reopening after 5 years. And this reopening happened on Women's Day this past Saturday. Do stay tuned.